Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're tackling something pretty profound, the undeniable link between the names we're given and our absolute core identity. And to really grasp how deep this goes, we've got to rewind to a pretty intense moment in history. Let's jump right in. Picture this, it's 1940. Korea is under Japanese occupation, and this incredibly harsh policy rolls out. It's called the Chungsi Gaemyeong. Basically, citizens were legally forced to swap their traditional Korean names for Japanese ones, and they were slapped with a strict 6-month deadline to do it. If you didn't comply, well, the fallout was absolutely brutal. You were literally erased from the family registry. That meant your kids were barred from attending school, and your family's essential food rations completely cut off. It quite literally became a matter of sheer survival. You see, under this law, a traditional Korean name, say Young-soo, was suddenly forced to become the Japanese Isuke. A girl named Suni was turned into Haruko. This wasn't just, some annoying administrative paperwork. It was a calculated, deliberate strategy to slowly chip away at their true identity as Korean people. It was a psychological tool, really, designed from the ground up to make them forget their roots, their culture, and their inherent worth as a distinct nation. But human resilience is an amazing thing. Out in public, at work, at school, sure, they had to use these new foreign names. But behind closed doors, a quiet rebellion. Mothers would literally whisper their children's real Korean names at home. Just hearing that familiar name spoken by your mom acted like an anchor. It was this powerful act of love and defiance that kept their true identity alive through decades of colonial hardship. That whispered name was a nightly reminder. Hey, I know exactly who you are. That deeply emotional piece of history brings us to a question we all inevitably bump into, especially when the world tries to strip away everything we know. Who am I really? It's a question that echoes throughout human history, and it completely reshapes how we view ourselves when our external circumstances turn upside down. What's crazy is that these massive identity crises, they almost never happen on our good days. They hit us right in the middle of incredibly disorienting life shifts. Think about it, when your life just totally collapses. Or when you lose that long-held job that you quite literally defined yourself by. Or maybe navigating the super complex, isolating feelings of living in a foreign land as an immigrant. When you're stuck in that middle ground, constantly getting asked, where are you really from? Man, the weight of that identity question becomes incredibly heavy. Actually, we see this exact same struggle playing out thousands of years ago. Take the biblical text of 1 Chronicles chapter 9. It was written for a community desperately trying to find themselves after 70 long years of exile in Babylon. 70 years! For the younger generation, Babylon was literally all they knew. Jerusalem, their ancestral homeland, was just an old bedtime story. The temple was burned, the walls were totally destroyed, and their identity as a people was just completely shattered. And just like we saw in 1940s Korea, the Babylonians went straight for the names. They specifically targeted Hebrew names containing the divine syllables El or Yah, which pointed back to the God of Israel. Take the famous prophet Daniel, for example. His name means God is my judge. Well, he was renamed Belteshazzar, a name that directly honored a foreign Babylonian god. So what we're looking at here is a highly effective 4-step assimilation strategy. The Babylonian Empire knew exactly what they were doing. Step 1, teach them a different language. Step 2, force a different name on them. Step 3, change their food. And eventually, Step 4, you've successfully created a completely different identity. It totally proves that being taken captive wasn't just about losing some land. It was fundamentally about systematically erasing who they were as God's people. Now, fast forward to today, okay? We aren't living in ancient Babylon or under 1940s colonial rule, but let's be real, the world is still trying to rename us. Society is constantly slapping labels on us based purely on what we look like, what's in our bank account, or how productive we are. We get boxed into these really harsh categories: successful, failure, useful, or useless. The world takes one look at your resume and tries to tell you exactly who you are and what your worth is. But the historical text we're digging into today offers this incredible counter-narrative for that exiled generation, and honestly, for us too. 1 Chronicles 9:1 says, "So all Israel was recorded in genealogies." Now, I know, genealogies usually sound like dry, boring lists of names, but for a group of people whose temples were burned to the ground and walls destroyed, this list was a massive, ringing declaration. It was loudly saying, you are not forgotten. You are still the chosen people. And here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. Let's zoom in on the original Hebrew word used for recorded here. The word is Yahas. This is so profound because it's written in the passive voice. The Israelites weren't just actively jotting their own names down in some record book. That passive voice, it implies a higher power is at work. It means that while the Empire of Babylon was working overtime to erase their names, God was the one actively writing them down. This points straight to the concept of a divine registry, which you'll often hear referred to in biblical texts as the Book of Life. And this registry proves something really beautiful. Even if the world or history itself completely forgets your name, God never does. That genealogy in First Chronicles, it is packed with obscure names that history books couldn't care less about, but they mattered deeply to the Creator. Which brings us to a very specific, amazing group of people in the text called the Rishonim. That translates to the first to return. Just think about the sheer courage that took. After 70 years, Babylon had become comfortable. It was this bustling, wealthy metropolis. Going back meant making the jarring choice to walk away from total comfort and head back to complete ruins. No infrastructure, nothing. The Rishonim were the brave ones who made the incredibly tough call to reclaim their true homeland.
And when they finally got back to Jerusalem, they didn't just sit around in the rubble throwing a pity party. They got to work. They instantly reclaimed their ancestral roles: priests, Levites, temple servants, and gatekeepers. They stepped up and took on specific, structured responsibilities to physically and spiritually rebuild their broken community.
Let's zero in on one specific group for a second: the gatekeepers. You find them in 1 Chronicles 9:17. Let me tell you, this role was 0% glamorous. Absolutely no worldly prestige. And the irony is just wild here. They had spent decades as captives. They finally returned to a city with broken walls and a destroyed temple, and they are quite literally assigned to guard the gates of a house that doesn't even fully exist yet. But they took up the post anyway. Why? Because by stepping into this really unglamorous, unseen place, they were reclaiming their identity. They were proudly saying, "I am a person who guards God's house." It's a perfect example that who you are isn't defined by some worldly standard of success. Your identity is confirmed by faithfully standing in the exact role God has entrusted to you, no matter how tiny or invisible it might feel. This whole idea actually echoes all the way into the New Testament. Just look at this quote from 1 Peter 2:9. It completely replaces those harsh worldly labels like failure or useless with God's ultimate declaration of who we are. A chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation. It invites us into a lineage that isn't about bloodlines or how much we've achieved on paper, but is built 100% on grace. So as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative question to chew on. Whose labels are defining your true identity right now? Are you letting the world's passing judgments dictate your worth? Or are you resting in the truth of the Creator who has actively recorded your true name? Give that some thought as you step into whatever unseen but absolutely vital role you've been given today. Thanks so much for hanging out with me to explore this. Stay curious, and I'll catch you next time.